The screen door slammed like a judge's gavel, the sound ripping through the humid Kansas night, sealing Aiden Harper's fate in the echo of abandonment. "God doesn't make mistakes like you," his mother spat, her voice a venomous whisper that cut deeper than the summer storm raging outside. Her Bible clutched like a shield as she backed away from the boy she'd raised. 15 years old, Aiden crumpled to the linoleum kitchen floor, the taste of his own confession. "Mom, I'm gay," still bitter on his tongue, while thunder mocked his sobs from the heavens above. That was the night the Harper family fractured, splintering like the old oak in the backyard that lightning had claimed the year before. Evelyn Harper, pillar of the First Baptist Church of Eldridge, couldn't reconcile her golden boy with the sinner she'd birthed. She'd packed a single suitcase by dawn, leaving behind the scent of her lavender soap and a note scrawled on the back of a grocery receipt. "Pray for forgiveness. I can't watch this, Dad." Ever the quiet farmer with calloused hands and a heart too broken to mend, just stared at the coffee pot, muttering, "She'll come around, son. Folks do, but she didn't." The divorce papers arrived by mail 6 months later, and Evelyn vanished into the anonymity of Wichita, chasing a fresh start with a cousin's distant kin, severing ties as cleanly as she pruned her rosebushes. Aiden learned survival young. Eldridge was the kind of small town where everyone knew your business before you did, where the annual corn festival doubled as a gossip mill, and Pastor Reynolds preached fire and brimstone every Sunday about the unnatural acts that invited God's wrath. School became a minefield. His best friend, Tommy, who'd sworn brotherhood over stolen sips of Dad's Pabst Blue Ribbon, ghosted him after overhearing the whispers. "Ain't right, man," Tommy mumbled once in the locker room, eyes darting like a cornered raccoon, before their paths diverged forever. Aiden buried himself in books, in the worn pages of Steinbeck and Whitman smuggled from the library, dreaming of horizons beyond the endless wheat fields. By 18, the itch to flee became unbearable. Dad's health was fading, emphysema from years of chain-smoking Camels while baling hay, and Aiden couldn't bear the pitying glances at the gas station or the way Mrs. Wilkins from the diner slipped him extra pie with a sad smile, like he was a stray pup she'd take in if only propriety allowed. "Go chase that city life you read about," Dad rasped one autumn evening, clapping a rough hand on Aiden's shoulder as they watched the harvest moon rise over the silos. "Make me proud." And son, I'm proud already. Those words, gravelly and true, were the last tether Aiden cut. He loaded his beat-up Ford pickup with a duffel of clothes, a shoebox of Polaroids, Mom's face carefully excised from each, and every cent from his part-time gig at the feed store, $1, $247.36. Destination, New York City, the glittering beast he'd seen in movies, where misfits like him could vanish into the crowd and reinvent themselves. The Greyhound bus ride was a blur of flatlands giving way to skyscrapers, each mile a shedding of skin. Aiden arrived at Penn Station in the dead of a February night, the air thick with exhaust and possibility, his breath fogging the glass as he pressed his forehead against the window. No plan, no connections, just a Craigslist ad for a closet-sized room in Brooklyn and a resolve harder than the concrete underfoot. He crashed on a lumpy futon in a Bushwick walk-up shared with 3 strangers. A tattooed barista named Jax who blasted EDM at dawn, a law student from Mumbai perpetually buried in case files, and Lena, a drag queen moonlighting as an Uber driver, who took one look at Aiden's haunted eyes and declared, "Honey, you're family now." First round of Cosmos on me. Those early months were a grind of additions and dead-end jobs. Barista by day, Waiter by night at a Hell's Kitchen dive where the tips were greasy and the catcalls relentless. Aiden's lithe frame, with its mop of chestnut curls and sharp cheekbones inherited from some long-lost Irish ancestor, drew eyes he both craved and feared. He learned the city's rhythm, the screech of the F train, the neon pulse of Christopher Street, the hidden speakeasies where leather-clad men sipped Manhattans and traded stories of lost loves. But the ghosts followed. Nightmares of moms retreating back jolted him awake. Sweat-soaked and gasping, the phantom slam of that door reverberating in his skull. One rain-lashed Tuesday in May, fate or serendipity intervened at a poetry slam in the village. Aiden, nursing a cheap beer after a soul-crushing callback for an off-Broadway understudy role, found himself mesmerized by the stage. Up there, under the haze of cigarette smoke and fairy lights, stood Caleb Ruiz, a Puerto Rican firebrand with skin like burnished bronze, eyes the color of aged whiskey, and a voice that wove words like spells. Caleb recited a piece about fractured families and reclaimed identities, his cadence rising and falling like the Harlem River at high tide. We are the sons she couldn't hold, the daughters she prayed away. But darling, we bloom in the cracks, fierce and unapologetic. The crowd erupted, but Aiden felt it in his bones, a pull like gravity shifting. Afterward, emboldened by liquid courage, Aiden approached. That was. You made it real, he stammered, extending a hand that trembled slightly. Caleb's grip was warm, steady, his smile a crooked slash that revealed a dimple in his left cheek. Real's all I got, amigo. Name's Caleb. You read, Aiden nodded, blurting out his own scribbled verses from a dog-eared notebook. They talked until the bar shuddered, about Whitman's barbaric yawp, the sting of rejection letters, the way Eldridge's stars seemed dimmer than Brooklyn's street lamps. By dawn, over greasy diner eggs at TikTok, Caleb leaned across the Formica table and said, "Stick around, Aiden Harper. This city's better with company." What began as late-night walks along the East River, sharing secrets under the Brooklyn Bridge's glow, blossomed into something seismic. Caleb was a force, a graphic designer by trade, activist by soul, raised in the Bronx by a single mom who'd fought deportation twice and won. He moved through the world with an unshakable grace, his laugh a rumble that chased Aiden's shadows away. Their first kiss happened on a fire escape during a blackout. The city plunged into starlit darkness, Caleb's fingers threading through Aiden's hair as rain pattered on the metal grate below. "You're safe here," Caleb murmured against his lips, and for the first time since that Kansas kitchen, Aiden believed it. But love, in the American dream's underbelly, was never a straight path, twisted with detours of doubt and the weight of what-ifs. Aiden and Caleb dove headlong into each other that summer, their apartment a chaotic nest of sketchpads, half-read novels, and the scent of Caleb's adobo simmering on the stove. Weekends blurred into rooftop barbecues with Lena and Jax, where stories flowed freer than the boxed wine, and Aiden began to heal, stitch by tentative stitch. He landed a role in an indie film, nothing blockbuster, just a queer coming-of-age flick shot in dingy Queens warehouses, but it paid rent and whispered promises of more. Caleb, ever the anchor, celebrated with a surprise trip to Fire Island, where they rented a ramshackle cottage steps from the dunes. There, amid the crash of Atlantic waves and the bonfire flicker of strangers' laughter, Aiden shed the last of his armor. They made love on a blanket under the Milky Way, Caleb's body a map of constellations, freckles on his shoulders like Orion's belt, the curve of his hip a crescent moon. I love you, Aiden confessed at dawn, the words tumbling out like a prayer he'd long suppressed. Caleb pulled him closer, voice husky with sleep. Te amo, mi vida. Always have. Yet, beneath the idol, fissures formed. Aiden's past was a specter at the feast, manifesting in quiet moments, a hesitation before introducing Caleb as his partner at industry mixers, or the way his phone went silent on Mother's Day, screen unopened. Caleb noticed. Of course, his artist's eye missed nothing. Talk to me, Harper, he'd say, tracing idle patterns on Aiden's chest during those languid post-coital hazes. Aiden would deflect with jokes about his corn-fed trauma, but the truth festered. Evelyn's absence was a void that echoed, a betrayal that shaped him more than any embrace. The first real crack came in October, during Fashion Week's frenetic swirl. Caleb had scored a gig designing posters for a queer art collective, and Aiden tagged along to the afterparty in a Soho loft, all exposed brick and throbbing bass. There, amid the glitterati, models with cheekbones like switchblades, influencers snapping selfies, Aiden locked eyes with Marcus, a producer from his film set. Tall, blonde, with the easy charm of old money, Marcus sidled up, champagne flute in hand. Missed you on set, kid. You ghosted after rap. Thought we had unfinished business. His wink was loaded, a callback to a drunken hookup during filming, when loneliness had Aiden seeking solace in fleeting touch. Caleb, across the room sketching caricatures on napkins, caught the vibe, the lingering hand on Aiden's arm, the low laugh that bent too close. Later, in the cab home, the air thickened. Who's the Ken doll? Caleb asked, tone light but edged. Aiden shrugged it off. Just a colleague. Ancient history, but Caleb's silence stretched, a chasm widening. That night, as they lay back-to-back in their queen-sized bed, a splurge from IKEA, Caleb finally broke. I get it, Aiden. The scars. But don't make me collateral. Aiden turned, pulling him into a fierce kiss. Apologies murmured into skin. They mended, as lovers do, with urgency and tenderness, but the seed of insecurity took root. Winter brought escalation. Dad's letters arrived sporadically, yellowed envelopes postmarked Eldridge, filled with clippings of Aiden's reviews. Local boy makes good in the Big Apple. And gentle prods. Heard from your ma? She's in Wichita. Last I checked. Church work. Aiden burned them unopened, the paper curling like his resolve. Caleb pushed gently for reconciliation. Baggage like that eats you alive, babe. What if she's changed? Aiden recoiled, snapping. She chose God over me. End of story. The fight spilled into the new year. Words like shrapnel. Caleb accusing Aiden of emotional cowardice. Aiden hurling back that Caleb's perfect family made him blind to real pain. They slept apart for a week, the apartment a Cold War zone, until a snowstorm trapped them inside and necessity thawed the ice. I can't lose you, Aiden whispered, and Caleb, ever forgiving, drew him in, then let me in, all the way. Spring unfurled with tentative blooms. Aiden booked a lead in a Broadway revival, Angels in America, the role of Prior Walter, a seraphic AIDS patient grappling with apocalypse and desire. Rehearsals were grueling, 8-hour days in a drafty theater on West 42nd, but the part cracked him open, mirroring his own reckonings. Caleb attended every preview, his presence a talisman in the dim house. Opening night, June Pride Month's Eve, was electric. Critics raved. Audiences wept. And Aiden emerged from the stage door into a crush of flashbulbs and well-wishers. Caleb waited with roses, red as arterial blood, pulling him into an alley kiss that tasted of victory and salt. But triumph's shadow loomed. Midway through the run, a letter arrived not from Dad, but Evelyn herself. Postmarked Wichita, the envelope trembled in Aiden's hands, the handwriting a ghost from childhood grocery lists. Inside, a single page, typed for formality, Aiden, I followed your career from afar. The play. The stirring things in me. I was wrong. Can we talk? With love, Mom. Caleb found him on the fire escape, staring at the skyline, paper clutched like a grenade. Read it, Caleb urged, sitting beside him, arm a warm weight. Aiden did, voice cracking on the final line. For the first time, hope flickered, fragile, untested. They met in a neutral zone, a midtown cafe, all chrome and anonymity. 2 months later. Evelyn looked smaller than memory. Gray roots bleeding through her dye job, hands veined like river maps, eyes the same stormy blue as Aiden's. You look happy, she said, stirring her tea without drinking. Aiden, flanked by Caleb, insisted upon a buffer against relapse, nodded curtly. I am. This is Caleb, my fiancé. The word hung, a gauntlet thrown. Evelyn's smile faltered, but she extended a hand, pleased. He's handsome. Small talk stuttered whether Dad's farm sold to developers, her volunteer work at a shelter for runaways. Then, the abyss. I was scared, Aiden. Of hellfire, of what folks would say. But losing you, that's the real damnation. Tears came, mutual and messy. Aiden forgave. Not fully, scars don't vanish with words, but enough for a tentative bridge. They parted with hugs, promises of holidays, Evelyn slipping a check for wedding flowers into Aiden's pocket. Caleb, later, over takeout lo mein, proud of you, warrior. Aiden leaned into him, the cities hum a lullaby. But beneath the mending, betrayal brewed, not from Mom, but from within, where old wounds whispered doubts. Summer's heat wave baked the city into submission, but Aiden's Broadway run cooled with acclaim. The Tony buzzed a siren's call. He and Caleb planned their wedding like architects of dreams. A rustic affair back in Kansas, not Eldridge proper but a neighboring vineyard in Lawrence, where progressive winds had softened the prairies. Invites went out on handmade cards, Caleb's designs, florals intertwined with pride flags, and RSVPs trickled in. Lena as officiant ordained online. Naturally, Jack's DJing vinyl soul. Dad wheezing his way from a hospice bed in Topeka, too frail for travel but beaming via Zoom. Evelyn's acceptance came last. A cream envelope with Wichita's postmark. Her script looping elegantly. I'll be there, front row. Wouldn't miss my boy's joy. Aiden's heart clenched, joy laced with trepidation. Could she truly stand witness? Caleb, sensing the storm clouds, suggested premarital counseling with a queer therapist in Chelsea. Just to unpack the baggage. Amor, he said, and Aiden agreed, though resentment simmered. Sessions revealed Aiden's fear. That love, once abandoned, was a fragile construct, prone to shattering under scrutiny. Meanwhile, Marcus reemerged like a bad sequel. The producer, flush from a Sundance deal, emailed Congrats on the engagement, laced with nostalgia. Remember that rap party? Sparks like that don't fade. Coffee? For old times. Aiden deleted it, but the echo lingered, a siren song of validation from a simpler, less committed era. He confessed to Caleb over a rainy picnic in Central Park, expecting absolution. Instead, Caleb's face hardened. Why keep in touch with ghosts? You think I'm blind? The argument erupted, raw and unfiltered, Caleb accusing Aiden of 1 foot out the door, Aiden retorting that Caleb's jealousy was a cage. You're the one who pushes for perfect reconciliation. Like my pain's a plot hole to fix, Aiden shouted, storming out into the downpour. Reconciliation came haltingly, in the form of a weekend retreat upstate, a cabin in the Catskills, stocked with bourbon and board games. There, amid hiking trails and crackling fireplaces, they stripped bare, Caleb admitting his own terror of inadequacy. Raised in a home where his mother's love was fierce but finite, deported dreams a constant specter. I fight for us because I know loss, he said, voice breaking as they sat on the porch, Adirondacks creaking under starlight. Aiden, softened by vulnerability, traced Caleb's jaw. You're my horizon, Cal. No going back. They made promises etched in flesh. The night a sacrament of sweat and whispers. Fall foliage turned the city crimson, mirroring Aiden's inner turmoil as wedding prep intensified. Evelyn visited New York, a whirlwind of awkward brunches and tentative bonding, her gifting Caleb a rosary, for protection, mijo, that he pocketed politely, Aiden's stifling laughter. But cracks spiderwebbed. Dad's health plummeted. A hospital call mid-rehearsal. Pneumonia, the final blow. Aiden flew home alone, Caleb tied to a deadline. In the sterile Topeka ICU, Dad gripped his hand. Oxygen mask fogging. Tell your ma. I waited. But life's short, kid. Marry that man. Live loud. Aiden nodded, throat tight, as monitors flatlined at dawn. The funeral was a blur of casseroles and condolences, eldritch folk murmuring about that city life taking its toll. Evelyn appeared uninvited, standing at the graveside in a black sheath, her presence a thorn Aiden couldn't dislodge. I'm sorry, she whispered, but he walked away, grief too fresh for grace. Back in Brooklyn, Caleb held the vigil, nights of takeout and tear-streaked angels' monologues recited from memory. The loss unearthed Aiden's deepest betrayal, not Mom's flight, but his own complicity in silence. The years he'd let resentment define him. I pushed her away before she could hurt me again, he confessed one midnight, curled against Caleb's chest. And now Dad's gone, and it's all echoes. Caleb's response was a vow. We'll echo louder, together. Build something unbreakable. Yet, as invitations finalized and tuxes tailored, Marcus struck again. A gala invite for Aiden's film premiere, with a +1 clause and a private after-party footnote. You, me, unfinished business. Caleb won't mind, open relationships are so now. Rage boiled. Aiden forwarded it to Caleb, who laughed bitterly. Block him, or I will. But the seed, poisonous, insidious, took hold. Late one night, post-curtain call, buzzed on post-show champagne, Aiden met Marcus for closure at a dimly lit lounge off Times Square. Words turned to touches, a hand on the knee escalating to a stolen kiss in the shadows. Aiden pulled back, horror dawning. What the fuck am I doing? He fled, hailing a cab through tears, The betrayal, a self-inflicted wound deeper than any mother's abandonment. Confession came at dawn. Aiden on his knees in their living room. Caleb's face a mask of devastation. It was a mistake, Cal. The grief, the doubts. I love you. Caleb's silence stretched eternal, then shattered. Love or fear of being alone like her left you? He packed a bag, crashing at Lena's, the apartment echoing with absence. Days blurred into a haze of unanswered texts and empty stages. Aiden's performance fracturing. Reviews noting distracted pathos. Evelyn called, sensing the rift. Fight for him, Aiden. Don't repeat my sins. Her words, unsolicited wisdom, pierced. The climax crashed on a sleeting December eve. Caleb returned, not for reunion, but reckoning, standing in the doorway, duffel at his feet, eyes red-rimmed. I can't build on ruins, Aiden. Trust is the foundation. Aiden, raw and repentant, poured out the poison. The kiss as a desperate grasp at control. The therapy revelations. Dad's dying charge. You're my redemption, not my cage. Caleb wavered, the storm outside mirroring the one within, until tentatively he stepped forward, arms enveloping. Then rebuild with me. No more ghosts. Winter's grip loosened into a tentative spring, the wedding looming like a beacon through the fog of mending. Aiden and Caleb rebuilt methodically. Weekly check-ins over coffee at their corner bodega, where truths flowed alongside cortados. A couple's tattoo, interlocking infinity symbols on their inner wrists, inked by Jax's artist hookup in Williamsburg. Broadway closed to thunderous applause, Aiden's prior earning whispers of nominations, but the real stage was home, where vulnerability became their script. Evelyn's role evolved, hesitant overtures turning to active involvement. She mailed fabric swatches for boutonnieres, roses, like my garden, and shared recipes for a Harper Ruiz fusion reception. Tamales meets pot roast. Aiden tested her, probing old wounds over FaceTime. What changed? Mom? Really? Her answer, halting, therapy. And a letter from your father. Before. Well, he said I was running from grace, not toward it. You're my grace, Aiden. The admission cracked the final barrier. He invited her to the final fitting, where she met Caleb's mom, Rosa, a vibrant force with a Bronx accent thick as molasses. The women bonded over Merlot, swapping stories of stubborn sons. Evelyn's laughter rusty but genuine. I thought I'd lost my chance at this. Yet, betrayal's aftertaste lingered, manifesting in microfractures. Marcus, undeterred, leaked a tabloid tidbit. Broadway star's steamy side hustle? A blurry photo from the lounge. Aiden's profile unmistakable. The press frenzy hit like a nor'easter. TMZ headlines. Twitter storms decrying queer infidelity. Fans unfollowing in droves. Caleb weathered it with stoic fury, issuing a joint statement. Love isn't flawless. It's fought for. But Aiden spiraled. The scandal dredging mom's original rejection. Unnatural. Unforgivable. Sleepless nights found him pacing the fire escape. Cigarette in hand, a dad habit resurrected. Staring at the Verrazano Bridge's distant lights. Caleb intervened with action. A surprise elopement teased to Vegas, abandoned for authenticity's sake. But the gesture reaffirmed. We're not headlines. Me Ray. We're us. Therapy doubled down, unpacking Aiden's pattern, seeking sabotage to preempt loss. Progress came in waves. Aiden blocking Marcus permanently, deleting socials for a digital detox, channeling pain into a memoir pitch about fractured families and found kin. As May bloomed, the vineyard venue in Lawrence transformed. A sprawling estate with rolling hills of Concord grapes, the chapel a restored barn aglow with string lights. Rehearsal dinner was a tapestry of tribes. Rosa leading toasts with rum punches, Lena cracking bawdy jokes as maid of honor. If Caleb cheats, I'll hex his ass with glitter bombs. Dad's old farmhands sharing yarns of Aiden's boyhood mischief. Evelyn sat quietly, her sundress a concession to modernity, but her eyes shone when Caleb pulled her aside. Gracias for raising him strong, Senora. He's my world. She nodded, voice thick. And you're his. I see it now. The eve before, Aiden and Caleb stole away to a hilltop overlook. The Kansas sky a velvet dome pricked with fireflies. They lay on a quilt, hands linked, the air sweet with honeysuckle. Scared? Caleb asked, his thumb circling Aiden's tattoo. Terrified, Aiden admitted. Of vows I might break, of her watching and judging. Caleb propped on an elbow, gaze steady. Then vow to me now, messy, human, all in. Aiden did, words improvised like jazz. Promises of laughter in lean times, of holding space for scars, of loving fiercely through tempests. They made love there, slow and reverent, the earth cradling them as stars wheeled overhead. Dawn broke with nerves electric. The ceremony was set for 4 p.m., guests arriving in waves, city friends in linen suits mingling with rural kin in be-on-the-lookout ties, a playlist of Billie Holiday bleeding into Bad Bunny. Aiden dressed in the bridal suite, a converted tack room. Tux crisp as new snow, slim black wool, bow tie askew until Lena fixed it with a wink. You look like sin wrapped in salvation, darling. Caleb, in the groom's quarters, fidgeted with his cufflinks. Rosa fussing over his hair. Mijo, breathe. He's yours. Evelyn lingered outside, a vision in pale blue silk, her silver cross necklace glinting like a truce flag. She knocked softly, entering with a corsage white orchids, symbols of new beginnings. For you, she said, pinning it to Aiden's lapel, her fingers lingering. I brought something, from her purse, a small box, the locket from Aiden's christening, engraved my miracle. Inside, a faded photo, not excised this time, but whole, family portrait. Mom, Dad, toddler Aiden grinning toothless. Wear it. For continuity. Aiden's throat closed. He fastened it around his neck, the metal warm against his skin. Thanks, Mom, for showing up. She cupped his face, tears brimming. I almost missed my miracle twice. Not again. The processional began, strings of it last swelling as guests filled the hay bale seats. Caleb waited at the altar, resplendent under a floral arch, his smile a lighthouse in Aiden's fog. Lena, rainbow stole draped, officiated with flair. Dearly beloved, outcasts, and fabulous weirdos, we gather not just to celebrate love, but to witness its resurrection. Vows exchanged, hands written, voices steady. Caleb's pledge of eternal rhythm, like salsa in the streets, Aiden's of roots entwined, cornfields to concrete. Rings slid on simple gold bands, engraved always, and the kiss ignited, cheers erupting like fireworks. But as the recessional faded, Evelyn remained seated, front row center, her posture rigid amid the exodus to cocktails. Aiden, arm linked with Caleb's, paused at her pew. "Mom!" She looked up, face ashen, a handkerchief twisted in her fist. "Beautiful," she managed, but her eyes, oh, those eyes, held a tempest. Pride warring with primordial fear, the church lady's indoctrination clawing back. "I need a moment." The words landed like a slap, soft but stinging. Aiden's joy fractured. Was this the betrayal redux? Her presence a performative nod crumbling under truth? The reception tent buzzed with life, long tables groaning under farm-to-table feasts. Heirloom tomato salads flecked with cotija, brisket slow-smoked over hickory, tres leches cake towering like a sweet monolith. Jack spun tracks from a vintage booth. Ain't no mountain high enough segueing into Despacito, bodies swaying on the sawdust dance floor. Toasts flowed, roses fiery, salute a Los Valientes. Lena's roast-laced ode to two hot messes making magic. Aiden and Caleb cut the cake, feeding bites with exaggerated tenderness, laughter bubbling as frosting smeared chins. Yet Evelyn's solitude gnawed. She hovered at the periphery, nursing a seltzer, conversations polite but stilted, small talk with Rosa about grandkids. Someday. Maybe. Nods to Lena's sequins. Aiden watched from afar, Caleb's hand a grounding squeeze. Give her space. Amor. This is her Everest. But doubt crept, the locket suddenly heavy, a millstone of misplaced hope. She came, but can she stay? Flashbacks assaulted. That slamming door, the note's curt piety. Had forgiveness been a fool's errand? Climax crested as dusk painted the vineyard lavender, guests thinning to diehards. A slow dance circle formed, Etta James crooning "I'd rather go blind," and Caleb pulled Aiden close, their bodies sinking like puzzle pieces. Whispers in his ear. 1 year from now, we'll be arguing over whose turn to load the dishwasher. 5 years. Adopting a rescue mutt named after Whitman. 10. Gray hairs and still stealing your hoodies. Aiden melted, fears ebbing, until a tap on the shoulder. Evelyn, tentative in the fray. May I cut in? With both of you. Caleb nodded graciously, stepping back, leaving Aiden adrift in her orbit. They swayed awkwardly at first, mother and son, the space between vast as oceans crossed. Evelyn's voice emerged small. I lied earlier. It wasn't just therapy or your father. It was you, up there, vowing to him. Seeing the man I failed become unbreakable. Aiden stiffened, the old wound pulsing. Then why the pause? Front row, but frozen. Like you're still deciding if this us is damnation. She halted, the music a mournful underscore, guests blurring into shadows. Tears carved fresh tracks. Because I am Aiden. Deciding every damn day. The pastor's voice in my head. The town's echoes, they scream abomination. But my heart. She pressed a palm to his chest. Over the locket. It screams louder. You're my son. This is holy. The confession hung. Raw and redemptive. The conflict's apex yielding to catharsis. Aiden pulled her into a hug. The first unforced since boyhood. Her frame frail against his. It's okay to falter. Mom. Just choose us. Every day. She nodded into his shoulder. Sobs muffled. I will. God help me. I will. Caleb rejoined, enveloping them both. A triad of tentative healing under the tense glow. Laughter followed. Evelyn's first real guffaw at Lena's quip about holy trinities with better hair. And the night spun onward, dances merging generations, toasts evolving to family redefined. As stars wheeled and fireflies danced, Aidan stole a moment with Caleb on the vineyard's edge, glasses of Cabernet raised. To betrayals survived, Aidan toasted, and loves that endure, Caleb clinked, eyes twinkling. To the mess that made us, Evelyn approached then, arm linked with roses, the women flushed from an impromptu salsa lesson. Photo? She suggested, and they obliged, 4 generations worth of found kin, framed by grapevines heavy with promise. Dawn crept, guests departing with hugs and hangovers, the couple waving from the porch swing. Evelyn lingered last, suitcase by the rental car, her embrace fierce, call weekly. And send cake scraps, your baking's better than mine now. Aidan chuckled, the sound free. Deal. Love you, Mom. She drove off, tail lights fading into prairie dawn. Not a slam but a soft exit, space for returns. Months later, in their Brooklyn eyrie, Aidan penned the memoir's epilogue. Forgiveness isn't erasure. It's graffiti over scars, bold and blooming. Caleb illustrated the cover, a fractured heart mended with wild vines. Evelyn visited for pride, marching arm in arm, her sign reading proud mom of a groom. Betrayals became backstory, conflicts the forge of resilience. In America's vast tapestry, from Kansas dust to concrete canyons, they wove a thread unbreakable. Love, dramatic and deep, humanistic in its humbling grace. The end? No beginnings, plural, etched in vows and venial sins. A gay American odyssey where leaving led to arriving, and watching from the wings became standing in the light.